Thank you for downloading this Brum Radio podcast. For more podcasts, visit brumradio.com.
And now, for your listening pleasure, it's the Brum Picture Show, brought to you by Brum Radio.
Hello and welcome to the Brum Picture Show, the weekly film show brought to you by Birmingham-based community cinema collective Screen B14. Coming up in the show, we'll have our usual film news and reviews, and this week our main feature will be a discussion of the legendary Martin Scorsese, to tie in with our screening of After Hours at the Cuban Embassy on March 21st, and also to celebrate his 10th nomination for Best Director at the Oscars, making him the most nominated living director. Now, we don't know if he's won yet, but you people listening in the future will know. But to be honest, I'm sure Scorsese will be ambivalent about this, because if you listened to the show last week, you'll know that he's already won the infinitely more prestigious award, the Brum Picture Show Award. Now, Marty, if you're listening, your trophy is still here, mate. It's gathering dust at the Brum Radio studios, so do let us know when you plan to pick it up. To be honest, it's getting in the way. So get your act together and come down to Brum Radio.
I don't know why he's disrespecting the awards like that.
I know, it's rude, to be honest.
It's not like he's got anything else on, is it?
Yeah, and we're dedicating a whole episode to him and he can't even be bothered to come down. But we'll let him off, we will say some positive things. So now it is time to introduce my award-winning co-hosts. My name is Paul Vernon, and once again, joining me today, kindly taking time out from her busy schedule of pitch meetings, film screenings, and Q&A appearances, it's the wonderful and multi-talented Nadine O'Mahony.
Hello.
How's it going, Nadine?
It's stressful. It's stressful being busy and having work, isn't it?
I wouldn't know.
I was hoping to get, a bit of a unemployment holiday and just kind of lounge around watching movies, and it's just been go, 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 and I can't handle it.
Yeah, you can handle it. Well, we are very honoured that you've taken the time out of your stressful movie hotshot existence to join us on the lowly Brum Picture Show. Speaking of people taking out time from their hotshot movie existences, oh my goodness, he's joining us for 2 weeks in a row now. Kindly taking a break from filming his upcoming short Letters from Space, our very own Rory Rawson. He says he's a broken man, but thankfully his leathery radio voice and luxuriant hair, honestly, you can't see it on the radio, but I assure you it's like Aslan with access to expensive conditioner. They're both present and correct. So Rory, welcome. How's it going?
It's Moroccan oil, actually. That's what gives it that silk.
Spilling all the secrets.
Oh God, I'm honoured you'd share that with us.
Yeah, and like I said last episode, the viewers have said it themselves. We can't let this radio show fall apart. And the last episode was such a success. I thought
it was.
That I had to come back.
Well,
I feel like our family is complete now.
Yeah, the life raft. I like to think
Radio.
of myself as.
Oh, it's beautiful. So, did you manage to find a conservatory from the listeners to film your film in, to do the outdoor shots of the sky?
An observatory.
No, conservatory, remember? We were discussing getting a conservatory.
Oh, that's right,
Do you even listen to the show?
Sadly, no one was that hospitable to that.
Oh, right, okay.
Yeah, but, I would be happy to go and visit someone's conservatory again.
What, just for the lols?
Yeah, just to say hi and, yeah.
Bit of human contact.
Feels nice.
Well, that's beautiful, Rory. Thank you so much for joining us again. So we'll be getting onto the news section in a moment, but to be honest, the news section will be a slightly more sombre affair than usual, as we'll be talking about some very sad local news. So we thought we'd kick things off with something a little bit more frivolous. Now, if you listened last week, you'll have heard us discuss the canine star of the BAFTAs, Mark Ruffalo. And there
Still
he is.
shocks me every time.
And there he is in the studio now. And this led to us discussing some celebrity dog name puns of varying quality. from terrible to awful. And we've actually had a few submissions from our audience, which I have mixed feelings about, to be honest, because we do try to be a vaguely serious film show. And when we ask you to email in about, film stuff, like serious film stuff, we get nothing. Yet the moment we mention dogs, we're inundated. So, Nadine, I do believe you have a few audience submissions for celebrity dog puns.
Yes, I do. 13-year-old Havana has written in with her suggestions, and there's some crackers. Sandra Pip Bullock.
Ah.
Spaniel Al Jackson.
That's good.
Doggett Downey Jr. And my personal favourite, Clint Eastwood.
Oh, that's really good. That's in the top 5, I imagine.
I do like that. Thank you for listening, Havana, and thank you very much for your fine dog puns. Anything else, Nadine?
Yes. Friend of the show, Skip Davies,
yes.
has written in.
Ooh.
Will these top Havanas, you be the judge? Macaulay Culkin.
Is that better than Corgi Mulligan?
It's not better than Corgi Mulligan.
It's similar.
I think it is.
It is similar. You think he's just copying Rory?
Yeah.
Skip.
Werner Herzog.
That's strong. I'll give him that.
And finally, Shirley Bassett Hound.
Yeah, I like that
suppose
too.
she does sing in Bond films, so she is kind of filmy. So, yeah. I mean, again, a variation on your Angela Bassett Hound, which I would say is stronger.
Yeah, that is stronger.
I think it was the best.
It's not Wagley Cooper,
I think people
is it?
have been saying it was the best, haven't they?
Have they now?
I think so.
Well, I'm still standing by Spaniel Day-Lewis.
Margot Doggy.
Clint Eastwood is
Clint
in the mix
Eastwood,
now.
that is good. I'd like to.
Yeah, if anyone's listening out there and you'd like to cast your vote for best dog pun, picture show at Brum Radio.
We're going to keep this bit going as long as possible.
It's what they want to hear.
Yeah, exactly. Forget about the films. Let's just get some different celebrity dog names in every week. That's what we're about on Brum Radio. That's great. Thank you very much for taking the time to email in those wonderful suggestions. We're touched, but still, it's pictureshow@brumradio.com if you want to, comment on other things. Maybe say something intellectual. Who knows?
You're trying to tell me that Werner Herzog is an intellectual. I won't have that.
I really like bones and processed meat.
It sounds like horrible.
Please take me for a walk. I'm so bored
For a
here.
what?
A walk.
Oh, okay. Just checking.
Oh, you're gonna...
A walk, doggy style. For I am Werner Herzog. Well, there we go. So that was the celebrity dog section of the show, which is now a regular feature, apparently. But now it is time to move on to our news section, which is usually quite a irreverent affair, but we can't ignore the biggest and most important news, not only in Birmingham, but also nationally, and that is the sad news that the Electric Cinema is closing its doors once again. So, guys, how do we feel about this? I mean, obviously sad. But yeah.
It's terrible news, not just for Birmingham, but nationally. It was, Britain's oldest working cinema. I had my first ever short film screening there as part of the back-in programme. It really felt really special and a real celebration of filmmakers from Birmingham who were just starting out, and it just felt like a really special occasion. It was also where I took my daughter to see, I think, the first female-directed film that we saw together, which was Wonder Woman. So that was special as well. So, and I know so many people have special memories at the Electric. It's really devastating. So, yeah, we now only have, I think, 3 independent cinema screens in Birmingham, the Mac and 2 at the Mockingbird. So it's really, Flat Pack Film Festival used to screen at the Electric. Big thing about the Electric as well, it was one of the few places where you could actually watch celluloid film regularly. And it had so much history. It should have been a museum. It's, all these posters, all these film reels from back in the day, equipment that's hard to come by. So it's really, for cinema lovers, it's absolutely devastating.
It is. Rory, any connection to the Electric yourself?
Well, yeah, definitely. I remember my favourite film that I saw in the cinema, which was Parasite. I watched that with Ben, and it was just we just both came out of it like, what did we just watch? It was just amazing. Yeah, and I think that's what it is for a lot of people, really, isn't it? It's just, it's about the film, and then you associate the film with the place, and then when the place goes, that even has an impact on the film. So, yeah, it's a real shame, but it sounds like, there's a bit of a fight I see on the Facebook groups, and in the news they're doing a petition, which for the record I did sign.
Has anyone suggested otherwise? Yeah,
just in case that rumour goes around. I remember I saw someone comment on the Facebook group that they might chain themselves to the electric door, which I wouldn't encourage or endorse.
It's not a good area to chain yourself.
No, and also I don't think you can, like
physically,
like with the door. I don't think it's a door in which you could chain yourself to.
I mean, I'm sure they'll find a way.
If you'd like to chain yourself to the cinema, there will be a gathering on the 25th of March around 6 p.m, I believe. So that might be a good time. And the Facebook group is called Save the Electric Cinema and has over 1,000 followers already. If you want to sign the petition, check out change.org. Write to your MP.
Yep.
Tell them how unhappy you are with it. And I think it's really important. We haven't addressed why the cinema's closing, because people assume, okay, it wasn't doing well financially. That's not the reason. The main reason that the cinema has closed is because the lease is up. So the 25th of March is the last day of the lease. It's an 88-year lease. It's the reason the previous owners left the Electric and why the current owners have left as well. And the building, it is in danger. It is not currently listed. People have applied to list the building. That's being decided. I think you said something about the council are deciding on something.
Historic England are apparently considering applications for making the cinema a listed building and register it as an asset of community value. And it's baffling that it isn't already.
Crazy. Yeah.
Shocking.
It's insane.
The whole street is actually in danger from developers. That's the rumours going round. And it's the reason you may have heard about Bum and the Old Crown. They wanted to save that as a important cultural location, as I believe it's where Black Sabbath started. It's a pub that's been closed for some time. That has failed. They stated that there were developers whose proposal offered more residential spaces than their proposal, and that one had been accepted. And so people are saying now that actually Station Street itself might be demolished apart from the old rep, and that a big block of apartments will be built on there. We don't know if that's going to happen, but it's certainly a possibility, and that's why it's really important to act now to try and save not just the Electric, the whole of Station Street.
Yeah, because that's what Birmingham needs more of, isn't it? Blocks of flats, because I haven't seen them building any recently, so,
Yeah, they're just building all those independent cinemas.
Yeah.
What was your favourite memory, Paul?
I think my favourite memory of the Electric was going to see an early cut of King Rocker, Stuart Lee's documentary about the Nightingales, a legendary local punk band in Birmingham. And yes, Stuart Lee was there doing a Q&A, and it was just great. It will be a great loss, but I don't know. I am optimistic that there has been enough of an outrage. I mean, it is national news. So many people are talking about this, and I kind of feel hopeful that it will be saved.
Yeah.
But yeah, everyone listening, our legions of fans, you get writing to your MPs. You
Sign
make a
the
noise.
petition.
Sign the petition.
Join the Facebook group, Save the Electric Cinema.
Well, yeah, because it's just a shame to see Birmingham's cultural heritage just slowly being eradicated, and it's an important city for film. Did you know that celluloid was apparently invented here originally as Parkasine?
Yeah.
I don't know. I didn't actually know that. And of course, Odeon Cinemas was founded here by Oscar Deutsch.
Yeah.
And do we know what Odeon stands for?
It stands for Odeon. It doesn't stand for that thing. That's a lie.
Oh, that's a lie?
Yeah.
Oh.
Oscar Deutsch entertains our nation. It's not true.
Oh.
It just comes from the word Odeon.
well, can we pretend that it is true?
You can if you like.
Okay.
You wanna
so, fun
live a lie?
fact, and this is definitely true, Odeon stands for Oscar Deutsch entertains our nation.
Yeah.
Wow.
Fact.
And Daniel Day-Lewis's granddad, Michael Balkan.
Spaniel Day-Lewis.
Yeah, Spaniel Day-Lewis's granddad, Michael Balkan, is also from here.
Crazy.
Wow.
Big guy in BAFTA and all of that. Big producer. So much. I can't even list all the, Birmingham has a really long, important film heritage, and we don't shout about it enough.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So, make a noise, people. Let's save the electric. And wishing all the staff all the best. And we hope there's a solution to this. And a piece of Birmingham's cultural heritage will be saved.
Yeah.
But that's probably one of the saddest stories that we've done on our usually frivolous news section on Brum Radio. So, let's lighten the mood. And this is a story that I am baffled and also extremely sceptical of. And I'm sure, unless you've been living under a rock, you'll have heard about the Willy Wonka experience in Glasgow, which has become infamous and just already an instant viral meme just by how rubbish it was. So basically, some company decided to put on some immersive Willy Wonka experience up in Glasgow, and it was not as advertised, let's say. So they advertised it with all this fancy AI-generated art, and then when people got there, it was
Oompa Loompas making meth.
Yeah, Oompa Loompas. Yeah, it was somewhat lackluster, and they also took it upon themselves to invent a character who was like a silver masked ghost figure called the Unknown, who has nothing to do with Willy Wonka. This character was given no context within the event.
He was an evil chocolate maker.
Yeah, and it was a silver masked ghost that would just kind
called
of
the Unknown, like a wrestler.
Called the Unknown, that would just leap out at children and disturb them, or
it
just
was so
more,
disturbing.
or,
I was disturbed watching it.
or more just confuse them. So according to bloodydisgusting.com, and this has been reported in various outlets, a horror movie about the Willy Wonka experience titled The Unknown is in the works, and the film follows a couple haunted by the death of their son, Charlie, as they escape to the remote Scottish Highlands, where an unknowable evil awaits them. Now,
what's that got to do with chocolate?
well, yeah, I just don't. I had to check that it wasn't 1st of April already, because I just don't understand this news story at all.
I mean, did you not see Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey?
Well, no, but that's the thing. Winnie the Pooh is in the public domain now.
Yeah.
But surely the Dahl estate would not have approved this. And how has this film managed to get greenlit within a week? And like they've actually they've
presuming the Unknown was created by the AI script that was created for the event, and since AI is not a human, it can't be copyrighted.
And also, I'd argue the only similarity you've mentioned there between the Unknown and Charlie in the Chocolate Factory is the name Charlie, which could be a coincidence.
Yeah. So is it the case that this film was already in development, and then they were just like, oh, this news story's turned up about this terrible event, which, by the way, keeps being described in news stories as analogous to the Fire Festival. I disagree with that analogy, because the Fire Festival was a Lord of the Flies type scenario where people spent thousands to then be stuck on an island with a bunch of influencers having to fend for themselves.
And at least it showed ambition.
Yeah, exactly. Whereas this thing that's happened in Glasgow is just, I think the closer analogy is just those rubbish Santa's grottos that turn up there's a news story every year about some Santa's grotto that people turn up at, and then people are like, oh, that was a bit rubbish, wasn't it? And then a news story is written about it. To compare that thing to the Fire Festival, I think is wrong. You don't think it was a thing that was already in existence?
I think this was fast-tracked. I think they saw that creepy as heck mask. And that I hope it's the same performer. I hope they get the original on that, because that was unhinged, honestly.
But yeah, I just kind of assumed that this was something that had already been in the works, and then they were like, oh, let's leap on the viral success of that mad meme that no one is going to remember in a week. Like, so
I don't know. I thought it was unforgettable.
I don't know. But yeah, I had many questions about this. Mainly what, why, and how,
and when.
And when? Well, apparently late 2024 is the answer
what I
to
think
when.
might happen is that they might start doing a experience of that event, and charge the same amount of money, because that's what I would do if it's like, come to the Willy Wonka experience. It's terrible.
Yeah, come see how rubbish it is.
Yeah.
I don't know. The problem is, I feel like if someone tried to recreate it, it would just be infinitely better than the original event. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's really hard to intentionally do something that bad.
Lightning in a bottle kind of thing, isn't it? But yeah, I'm so intrigued to see what happens with this. But anyway, we thought that story of people trying their best and failing miserably would cheer you up. How failure can in fact lead to a new production being made and a new film.
Don't you just love it, Rory? I've had a script for a feature film that I've been trying to make for about 5 years, and some rubbish experience happens in Glasgow, and the unknown gets fast-tracked and greenlit within like a week.
Well, I'll believe it when I see it.
I look forward to seeing it.
You are listening to the Brum Picture Show on Brum Radio, and today we are talking about Martin Scorsese.
Woo!
Woo! We will be showing After Hours on the 21st of March, so we thought we'd have a little bit of a chit-chat about the legendary director. Now, it's fair to say, Marty's had a bit of a career, hasn't he?
Prolific is the word. Wolf of Wall Street, Shutter Island, The Departed, Raging Bull, Goodfellas, Casino, After Hours, Gangs of New York, Last Temptation of Christ, Hugo, Aviator, Mean Streets, Bringing Out the Dead, The Last Waltz, New York, Kundun, The Colour of Money, and that's not even all of them. You must have seen a Martin Scorsese film. He's hardly like an obscure director, very popular, critically acclaimed, what every director wants, really, isn't it? To be both popular and critically acclaimed, and he's managed to do both. And everything from gangster films to sort of religious epics, from the profane to the profound, he's done it all.
Absolutely. He does his art housey kind of stuff and his absolute genre trash. And I really love that about him. He's been, because he started out working with Roger Corman, of course, the B-movie genius, and it was he who taught him about that entertaining films could be shot with very little money or time, and that prepared him for the challenges came with filming Mean Streets, which was his breakthrough film. And then he became friends with the incredibly influential movie brats of the 70s. So Brian De Palma, Francis Ford Coppola, George Lucas, Steven Spielberg, all hanging out together. Can you imagine that? And it was De Palma who introduced Scorsese to Robert De Niro. And, all the beautiful films that they made together. Well, beautiful might be the wrong word, but...
they are.
Angry, lonely films.
He's a documentary filmmaker as well. He's a massive music fan. Made concert films, very famous Italian-American, about his parents. And he's a producer as well. He's produced for TV. He's produced films. I believe he's a producer. He was going to be a producer on the Joker film.
He did a great documentary called with Fran Lebowitz. I don't know if you ever saw it, Pretend It's a City on Netflix.
Right, no.
Yeah, that's really good.
I've always been baffled by the Joker connection, though, because obviously Martin Scorsese has been most famous recently in the world of social media for his comments about Marvel films not being cinema, and it does deeply confuse me that he was attached to do a DC film, a film that is a rip-off of two of his best films. I think
that's why he stepped away from it. I think it was. I think that's the problem with Joker. It's not a bad film, but when the films that you're riffing on are two of the greatest films of all time,
Yeah.
Taxi Driver and King of Comedy, you're kind of setting yourself up for a poor comparison. But yeah, and he's also incredibly passionate about film preservation and world cinema and what he calls cinema literacy. He considers himself to be dyslexic and have ADHD. He found it hard to read as a child, and he wants young people to have a cinematic literacy and believes that the moving image is just as important. So yeah, he's not only a filmmaker in his own right, not only a producer for other films, but he's also a real staunch supporter of film preservation.
As long as they're not Marvel films.
Well, they don't need preserving yet, Paul.
No.
Come back in 60 years' time.
Marty will be dead, but yeah.
Yeah.
His estate will be burning.
And the Marvel films will live on.
And let's
Yeah,
not forget his greatest film achievement of all time, Goncharov, the last Scorsese film. Goncharov, you've not seen it?
What?
What's Goncharov?
What?
Goncharov is a film that may or may not have been invented by the internet.
Oh,
It's a film apparently directed by Scorsese, starring both Pacino and De Niro in the 70s, set in Italy, I believe, about hitman with some very overt gay overtones and lots of clocks.
Clocks.
The symbolism of the clock is incredibly...
Massive clocks.
The symbolism of the clocks is very important to the film Goncharov. And the soundtrack, it's a real film, Paul. Google it. The soundtrack's available.
It's a real film that may or may not have been invented by the internet.
That's what people say, but if it's not real, why is the soundtrack available?
So if you're a fan of Martin Scorsese and massive clocks, check out this film that doesn't exist.
You laugh, but his daughter, who you may know from TikTok, is quite a bit of a viral sensation there, making videos with her dad and their dog. The arguments were going online. She asked him, she says, "Dad, what is Goncharov?" He said, "Yes, that's a film I directed." So you've heard it from the horse's mouth. Goncharov is a real film. It's just been lost.
Lost. What's their dog called? Barky Scorsese. It's just lost. They just lost it down the side of the sofa or something.
I don't know.
I know what you mean. It's quite hard to lose, isn't it?
Oops.
It's real. All I'm saying is it's real. It's real. I believe.
Well,
I believe in Goncharov.
I'm amazed I didn't know about that. I'm intrigued. I'm going to do some research. I don't believe it. Why wouldn't this be out there? You've got this devilish smile going on there, Dean. Like this is some
real
cruel deception.
film.
Okay,
it's a real film. I believe in it.
Okay, you want to will it into existence.
Sybil Shepherd was in it, apparently.
Okay, all right. Well, there we go. Well, that's interesting. Or is it? So, Rory, you a Scorsese fan?
Oh, yeah, I love the guy. He's just got such a huge range of films. If you don't like his hardcore gangster stuff, he's just got a musical. He's got some sort of religious stuff. If you're a big religious fanatic, the guy has it all.
It does.
Yeah, Shutter Island, that's another one.
I love that one.
Yeah, it's Marty's least favourite one, apparently.
I love it.
I really like that film. And you've also got sort of films that are just, I think, like The Wolf of Wall Street is just such a Hollywood film.
I love it. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's so good, but it's just so hedonistic. And then he's got Silence, which is this super introspective.
And he made them in his 80s.
Yeah.
It's like
amazing.
And let's not forget his longtime collaborator Thelma, and I might be pronouncing this wrong, Schumacher, who has, I think, edited all of his films or most of his films.
Remember, Thelma doesn't like it when you pronounce things wrong, so
yes,
you might want to...
I tried Thelma, but she's worked with him, side by side for many years, and is a huge, part of his aesthetic and why people love his movies.
And I was reading Spielberg on Scorsese, which was really interesting, and he had a really great quote. He said, "My movies are whispers, Marty's movies are shouts."
Oh.
And what he means by that was Spielberg said that, he really thinks about his audience when he makes his films to his detriment. But he says that Martin Scorsese, he makes huge decisions and then he expects the audience to react to that. Mm-hmm. And I think that's why, he's made such interesting works, really. He doesn't cater.
Yeah, it's great how he manages to be like a critic's darling, but also very, very commercially successful as well. And he's just got all these different modes, and he is just great, isn't he? A living legend. So as always, we're each gonna pick our own, not necessarily our favourite Scorsese film, but just one we'd like to chat about for a bit. And first up today is Nadine's pick. And what are you going to talk to us about today, Nadine?
I think this is my favourite. I've chosen to talk about Taxi Driver because it's probably the Scorsese film that I've watched the most. Taxi Driver just feels like the quintessential Scorsese film. And it was his first collaboration with Paul Schrader, who we've talked about in the show before, the film world's controversial uncle. So yeah, De Niro, Paul Schrader, Thelma, Scorsese, what a combination. So yeah, Taxi Driver was written by Paul Schrader, who is a director in his own right, directed American Gigolo, directed Master Gardener, First Reformed, a number of different films. But he wasn't a director at this point, he was a film critic. Brian De Palma was considering directing it. And as Paul mentioned earlier, Brian and Martin were friends. And again, Brian De Palma, what are you doing, man? You're giving away, one of the greatest actors, one of the best scripts. Mm-hmm. But Brian suggested Marty do this film. And he really connected with the character of the taxi driver, Travis Bickle. It was really quite semi-autobiographical in the sense that Paul Schrader was going through a divorce and he was very depressed and he was just driving around and drinking, and he saw the taxi driver as kind of a metaphor for the situation he was in. He called it, travelling around in a metal coffin. He ended up at the hospital because he had an ulcer, and he realised that he hadn't spoken to anyone in weeks. And that's when he started, pouring out all his loneliness and all his problems into a form of a script. And when he talks about this film, he talks about the pathology of loneliness. The character of the taxi driver is a lonely person, but his loneliness is his own fault because he pushes people away. And he chooses to work like the worst areas. He said he would work anytime, anywhere, any place. And yet he complains about the scum and the trash and, the people that he picks up. But it's his choice. He complains about women, yet when he has a woman that's interested in him, he takes her to the worst possible first date experience, other than perhaps the Willy Wonka experience. And, pushes her away and then acts like a lunatic afterwards. He complains about his health and his headaches and eats nothing but terrible food and stays up all night and drinks too much. It's a real cautionary tale because what Schrader and, of course, Scorsese and De Niro do so brilliantly is they make you empathise with this character in the beginning and you feel sorry for him, and then you learn that actually he's his own worst problem. And I think, you could call it the original incel movie if you like. And I think it is very important. I think it deals with a lot of issues with toxic masculinity, issues of racism. Some people deny that the character of Taxi Driver is racist. Paul Schrader has stated he is a racist character, and all of the people that he's violent towards in the film, in the original script, were black. But people got scared and worried that it would create controversy, so some of those characters were changed, and so it's less implicit in the film now. But, it's so brilliantly written, so do check out the script if you're a film fan. But what Scorsese did, beautifully shot film, amazing performance from Robert De Niro. Scorsese has always been one for encouraging his actors to improvise. So, the most famous line in the film is not in the script. That was an improvised moment. You talking to me. Robert De Niro had gotten that from a stand-up comedian that he was a fan of and was just playing around with it in the mirror, and Scorsese's genius was seeing that and thinking, yes, this has got to be in the film. He's in the film, actually. One of the actors in the film originally, sorry, that I shouldn't laugh, one of the actors who was supposed to be in the film originally died. See? One of the actors who was supposed to be in the film originally died, and so Scorsese ended up playing that part in the film. And he's been in a few other films as well.
I also thought, and I was shocked when I saw him when I first watched it, he was really, really good in that scene. Like, I thought he was amazing.
He said that De Niro really helped him in that scene. A legend from Tarantino about the film.
Oh yeah.
So this is from Quentin Tarantino's mouth. I didn't say this,
true.
but he says that the legend goes that Scorsese stayed up all night drinking, getting drunk with a loaded gun, and his purpose in the morning was going to shoot the executive at Columbia for making him cut his masterpiece. So I think the film was X-rated. They wanted it to be R-rated. I think he had to desaturate some of the scenes with blood in, make it look more orange, to make it look, less scary. It turned out to be a visual all night as he sat there with his loaded gun. Some of his fellow filmmaker friends came and talked to him, and apparently this lasted all night long. And I guess he decided not to in the end. Maybe Brian De Palma talked him out of it. I don't know.
It's a bit dramatic, isn't it?
Yeah. It was a different time.
Yeah.
People were always threatening people with loaded guns.
It also sounds like something Quentin Tarantino would make up.
Yeah.
Apparently, Brian De Palma did step in.
Oh.
And this is Brian De Palma's recollection. He contacted legendary film critic Pauline Kael, arranged for her to see the film, because he said, if Pauline sees it and she starts talking about it, it's over, And she did champion the film, I believe. So good old Brian. Yeah, there's a lot of controversy surrounding this film. And like I said, it is a violent film. Some people say that it glorifies violence. It certainly was part inspiration for an attempted assassination by a person who was obsessed with Jodie Foster's character in the film. Jodie Foster herself has said that she had a great time filming the film. She was 12 years old at the time. It's quite a very adult character that she's playing.
She was only 12.
She's only 12 and the character is 12. So if you don't know, she plays a sex worker, a child sex worker in the film. There was a psychologist on set for films that they felt were too grown up for her. Her sister doubled her, and she has come out and said, she felt good about the film and she was happy to be involved with it. But it is, a very, very controversial subject matter. But Jodie Foster's performance is absolutely amazing, and it's hard to believe she was only 12 at the time. It's also Bernard Herrmann's last score, so very famous composer. If you watched Hitchcock's films, you will have heard his score. Literally one of the best, one of the greatest of all times, and amazing, very jazz-inflected score, very hypnotic. The whole film has this wonderful sort of hypnotic, sort of repetitive, kind of insomniac feel to it. Brilliant film. Highly recommend it. One of my favourite films of all time, and I could just watch it 100 times. So, yes, it is a dark film, but I do think it has a lot to say, and I think it's a film worth watching and worth discussing.
But yeah, if you haven't seen Taxi Driver, young people, then go and watch it, because it's great,
if you like Joker, watch the original.
Yeah, if you like Joker and you haven't seen Taxi Driver, then, watch Taxi Driver and then go, oh, yeah, Joker's rubbish, isn't it?
Yeah.
You are listening to the Brum Picture Show on Brum Radio, and we are talking all things Marty Scorsese. So we've just heard Nadine talking about Taxi Driver, classic, and I have also opted to go for a Bobby De Niro starring Scorsese film, but this is definitely more in the genre side of his oeuvre. So I'm going to talk about 1991's Cape Fear. a remake of the 1962 film of the same title, starring Gregory Peck and Robert Mitchum. And it was based on the 1957 novel by John D. MacDonald, The Executioners. And it is a very Hitchcockian affair about ex-con Max Cady relentlessly pursuing a family due to a vendetta against the father, Sam Bowden, who he believes is responsible for sending him to prison. So many would argue that this isn't top-tier Scorsese, but this is one of my favourites because I love a good genre film, and this is a slick and tight exercise in suspense with a very over-the-top, bombastic performance by Robert De Niro, who is chewing the scenery and people's cheeks in this film. So it's certainly not a subtle one, but it's just Bobby De Niro having lots of fun, and he really bulked up for the role and threw himself into it. So he stars alongside Nick Nolte, Jessica Lange, who was almost cast in Raging Bull, by the way. Did you know? And Juliette Lewis, who are all at their best. And there's also lovely little cameos from Gregory Peck and Robert Mitchum from the original film. So, amazingly, this was originally to be directed by Steven Spielberg.
What?
Can you imagine Cape Fear directed by Steven Spielberg, and what a different film that would be? Because this is quintessentially Scorsese, because as we've discussed earlier, like Scorsese very much likes exploring the flaws in people and inviting us to empathize with perhaps not incredibly decent or perfect people. So the characters in this version of Cape Fear are a lot more morally ambiguous than in the original. So in the original, Sam Bowden, the patriarch of the family, is a witness to Max Cady's crime and then sends him down. But in the remake, Sam Bowden is Cady's attorney, and he buries evidence, which then leads to him being put away. So there's a bit of a ethical quandary of whether or not he actually did the right thing. And of course, Cady is an evil man who did evil things, but was it right of Nick Nolte's character to bury this evidence? Because well, there you go. That's what Scorsese is trying to make you ask.
Moral dilemma. He's a moralist.
He is. So, in classic Scorsese style, we are invited to sympathise somewhat with Cady. We're led to believe he kind of has a bit of a point. Not that there's really any justification for what he did. So he also focuses a lot more on the tensions in the family. So in the original version, they're all very morally clear-cut, and they're all just nice, 60s nuclear family kind of thing. But in this version, Sam Bowden is unfaithful to his wife, buries evidence as Cady's attorney, and also the female characters are a little bit different as well. In the original, Gregory Peck's wife is begging Sam not to kill Cady, but in this, she suggests it straight away. So it's like, well, that's obvious what we need to do, just need to kill him. And also in the original, the daughter is terrified by Cady, but in Scorsese, she's almost seduced by him. So this is like very much, it's free from the inhibitions of 60s censorship, and because the original was very hampered by the strict censorship codes at the time. Everyone in this is a little bit questionable, and it's a lot more of a nuanced look at the family. So yeah, it's classic Scorsese stuff, but operating within this psychological thriller framework, and I love it just because there's so many iconic moments, and particularly the score. So it is rescored by Elmer Bernstein, but based on Bernard Herrmann's amazing score from the 1962 original. And apparently, fun fact, they used a bit of music that Bernard Herrmann wrote for Torn Curtain, the Hitchcock film, which is famously the film on which Herrmann and Hitchcock fell out. So they used lost bits from that score as well. I think partly one of the reasons I love it so much is because I grew up on The Simpsons.
Yes, I was about to ask you. Didn't The Simpsons do a version of this with Sideshow Bob?
Exactly, they did.
When I was listening to you describe the film, I went, "Hang on a second, I have seen this."
Exactly. So, season 5, episode 2 of The Simpsons, Cape Fear. Sideshow Bob is Max Cady, and he is pursuing Bart in a similar way, and they do all the different set pieces for the film, and it is just Chief Wiggum plays like the private investigator, like luring Cady into the house. And also it contains one of the most famous Simpsons moments, which
the
is
rake.
The rake.
And that's enough of that.
Which is one of the most iconic moments in The Simpsons. So I think that is part of the reason why I have such an affection for this film, because it is impossible to watch it without just imagining Sideshow Bob.
Big clown feet.
Exactly. And Bart, D. It is just wonderful. You'll get something out of it if you've seen The Simpsons, but you'll also get something out of it if you haven't. So some fun facts about the film as well. So there's a legend that apparently during the early days of Spielberg's time working on the pre-production, that Bill Murray was going to be in the Max Cady role.
Oh my God.
So again,
I would have watched it.
Imagine all these little multiverses of what could have
Films
been.
that never were made.
Films that were never made. And also, Harrison Ford was also asked to play Sam Bowden, but he wanted to be Max Cady instead, and De Niro was not having that. So, see you later, Harrison Ford.
Oh, man.
But yeah, that's just really interesting. And also, if you've seen the Simpsons episode, but not the film, you'll be aware of this moment of Sideshow Bob / Max Cady hanging under the car in order to tail the family to the infamous river Cape Fear. So this is an idea that they came up with for the remake. And Robert De Niro was on board with the idea theoretically, but not until they made a stuntman try it out to make sure it was possible.
Was it possible?
It was.
Oh.
Yeah, it was. I mean, to be fair, they kind of cheated a little bit. It was a big 4x4, and they did raise the suspension a little bit, so there's a little bit more clearance. But yet they did indeed strap one of their most daring stuntmen underneath a car just to see if it was possible for Max Cady to do this. And I think that's fun, isn't it? Very fun.
Good job.
Yeah, and also from a production perspective, when they were location scouting, they didn't realise that the location that they chose was next to a runway, because the runway had been closed over the summer. And then when they came to film, they noticed there were all these planes taking off all the time, which was a problem. So in the end, they had to put people at the airport to communicate with air traffic control, and then they'd schedule the shooting around these people at the airport. Isn't that mad?
I imagine the sound man coming on to set the first day, whistling away, and then suddenly that first plane comes through, and he goes, "Well, my life is ruined now."
Yeah, it must have been a devastating moment, and quite an oversight, really. But But anyway, that's it, really. I just think it's great. It's Scorsese in a sillier mode, but it's still a very dark and gripping film. It's good. So watch it. That's what I've got to say.
Okay.
Rory,
Yo.
I believe you also have a Martin Scorsese film that you would like to recommend to people, and I believe it also stars Bobby De Niro.
It certainly does. We've really kept that variety, haven't we?
Yeah. Well,
In
it's
this
just
episode.
dedication to Bobby.
Yeah, no.
Right.
And it's interesting what you said earlier in the episode about Joker, because that was exactly my experience. I went to the cinema, watched Joker, thought, that was a bit rubbish. I feel sad. And then I obviously read the reviews, and everyone's going, "Oh, this is just a complete rip-off of Taxi Driver and The King of Comedy." And I watched Taxi Driver and The King of Comedy, and I went, "Yeah, this is a complete rip-off." And I loved The King of Comedy. I thought it was a brilliant film. That's the film, I chose. I don't know if it's the sort of Rupert Pumpkin and me whenever I go on stage and try to make 5 people laugh and inevitably fail. But I really related to that character, I think. It's and there's an interesting context as well, actually. It turns out De Niro purchased the script and approached Scorsese, who he didn't quite understand the character himself, and Robert De Niro was really wanted to make the film because at that time he was really hitting the height of his sort of celebrity status as a sort of post Taxi Driver, and he felt like he didn't obviously understand personally the character, but he could see it from the other perspective of this sort of weird sort of obsession and the obsession of celebrity, and he really wanted to make a film about it. But obviously, if you're the director, you're behind the camera, you probably don't quite experience that sort of fandom. And he was offered to him. It was a script by Paul Zimmerman. he based it on a man who kept a diary, and in his diary he assessed every Johnny Carson show with quotes such as "Johnny disappointed me tonight," which I thought was really interesting, and it really goes through that relationship with Rupert Pupkin and Jerry Langford, who is also obviously based on Johnny Carson himself.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, and I just think, and for me, it really does speak to that sort of thing we have in culture, and even looking at sports, when you say my team, it was my team, or football fans look at the other end of football players and go, God, without using the language they would use, what an idiot, I hate you, even though you don't know him, he could be a lovely person. And I think it speaks to sort of that thing within us that that obsession with fame, and also those who are famed. Yeah, I love the film. It's about a guy, Rupert Pupkin, who he believes he can perform on Jerry Langford's show, and with it, that would come fame and glory. And after a number of rejection, he decides to kidnap Jerry, demanding an appearance on his show. And yeah, like I said, it's a film about celebrity worship and perhaps maybe to never meet your heroes. Yeah, even though we've met the same hero, Stuart Lee. And it was a fantastic experience.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't kidnap him.
I would. No. Sorry, I shouldn't have admitted that on air. Never meet your heroes unless they're Stuart Lee. That's the full phrase. I heard that in preparation for the film, Robert De Niro started stalking his own stalkers, showing up at their apartments and calling them in the middle of the night.
Oh, wow.
That can't be true.
I don't know.
It's in Scorsese and Scorsese, or Scorsese and Scorsese, apparently, the book.
And also famously for his role as Max Cady, he committed a series of brutal assaults.
Really?
No, he just talked to a load of ex-cons, apparently.
Famously, that scene of The Simpsons, it was because he stepped on a load of rakes with his famously large feet. But yeah, no, I thought it was an amazing film, and obviously one that I think, obviously for film aficionados, people really love it, but for people who aren't film aficionados, it's kind of slept on, I would say. But it was a really nice discovery, and yeah, definitely one of my favourite films out of the ones he's seen.
It is a great film, and again, as we were saying earlier, if you have seen Joker but haven't seen King of Comedy, watch this, and then you'll realise why Joker's rubbish.
I'm so glad you think that, because I came out of the cinema and everyone was going, "Oh my god,
it's so good,
so so deep, and what's so nihilistic." And I came out of that feeling really, really sad. Yeah. And I just hated it. Yeah.
And I like that you say you hadn't actually seen Taxi Driver before that. Well, I like that because that means your hatred didn't come. Your hatred was pure. Yeah. It didn't come from comparing it to something else.
It was just like but also perhaps that's why Joker is actually maybe that's what it's there for. It's a board, a trampoline for them to watch two classic films.
I hadn't thought of it like that, but.
Yeah, like Cannes Skull
really
Island
way
is a trampoline into Apocalypse Now.
That's a really interesting segment, actually. Like bad films that make you go back and watch good films. We should definitely do that.
Let's do an episode on that.
If you have any suggestions, pictureshow@brumradio.com.
Yes, please do, alongside your dog names. You are listening to the Brum Picture Show on Brum Radio, and we have been discussing all things Martin Scorsese today, but now it is time for our review section. So first of all, we're going to be talking about Origin, which is a film by Ava DuVernay, director of such films as Selma, about the writing of the book Caste, The Origin of Our Discontents, exploring the life of the writer Isabel Wilkerson and the themes of the book itself. And who better to discuss this than Nadine, who took part in a Q&A after the screening of the film at the Mockingbird recently, and she said loads of clever things, and people were enthralled. So we're quite honoured to have Nadine in the studio to talk about the film Origin.
Thank you. I was honoured to be invited to take part in a panel discussion at the Reclaim the Frame preview screening of Origin. Ava DuVernay is, a titan in filmmaking. She's a trailblazer. I have to say I had some doubts when I read the synopsis of this film because I just didn't understand how you could make a film out of this. It was basically a film about somebody writing a book. How do you make that cinematic? But I, was really impressed. I think she did pull it off. It's a very emotive film. I have to admit I cried about 5 times in this film. And for some people, the topics in this film will be very distressing. It touches on racism, on the caste system, on murder and genocide. Yeah, so it's not a light watch. There's definitely some heavy subject matter, and it's all, the framing of this film is based on the author of the book, a real life person, and some of the tragic events that she lived through whilst writing the book as well. So it really is an emotive film. The thesis of the film is this idea that the issues with sort of segregation and racism in the US are actually ones that find their origin in the caste system. If you're not aware of the caste system, it's a hierarchy based on where you're born in the system. There is a caste system in India, which is discussed in the film, and the author, Isabel Wilkinson, compares racism in the US and the Holocaust and the enslavement of people from Africa during the transatlantic slave trade to caste systems. And it's a controversial thesis. Not everybody agrees with it. The other speaker, Dr. Saima Nasser, didn't feel that the case was made for it. I haven't read the book and I'm not an expert on these subjects, but just talking from a filmmaker's perspective, I think she did a great job at telling a very personal human story, using the character of Isabel to kind of, almost as a placeholder for you as the audience member, allowing you to kind of relate to her and empathise with her story and her journey, whilst also discussing historical matters. Some people, I think we discussed, it is almost like the polar opposite of Zone of Interest, which is a film that kind of forces you to be detached, whereas this really pulls you in and sort of makes you feel emotional. And some people might find that manipulative, but I think they're speaking to very different audiences. And I think sometimes we have to realise that, yes, I might know this thing, I might know my history, I might know this, I might understand this from my own lived experience, but not everybody gets it. And so these really important subjects, sometimes we need these stories to be told in different ways to different audiences. So I think that's part of, there's a character in the film who says to the author, make it plain, about her writing her book. And it feels like that's what Ava's trying to do with this film, is like make the ideas in the book plain for anybody to understand.
Yeah, I must say that was one of my issues watching it. There were too many scenes, I felt, where characters were explicitly just discussing the themes of the film with each other. But as you say, that is the kind of the point. So I thought it was really effective as well, and it definitely got me emotionally. It did feel like 2 or 3 different films in a way, because there was obviously it focuses on the writer's life, but then it also flashes back to these period pieces. There's a Nazi party member who falls in love with a Jewish girl, and then there's a black couple who escaped Nazi Germany and went on to co-author a book about segregation in the States in the 40s. And then, as Nadine mentioned, there's the story of Trayvon Martin. You can imagine another version of this film that is like an Adam Curtis documentary, a video essay making arguably spurious connections between historical events to make an academic point. But yeah, this film is kind of playing with these different ideas in a very interesting way. It didn't entirely work maybe, but I thought it absolutely set out what it was trying to achieve. It's trying to make you think about these issues and be emotionally affected by it. And
it does do that.
It does that, so, great success.
That's a good point. I think some of the criticisms of the film was this could have been a documentary, and it might have been more successful in some ways as a documentary, but I think, like I said, the point is not everybody will go and watch a documentary on, the caste system, but people might go and watch a film with Niecy Nash and John Bernthal in it. But yeah, it's not for everybody. Some people might be interested in the subject matter but just find it too emotional to watch. So, content warning on that. But I think it's a worthwhile endeavour, and I think it does what it sets out to do.
Absolutely. So go seek out Origin. Just quickly as well, I wanted to discuss another film that Nadine and I went to see at the MAC with an introduction from producer Roger Shannon, who will be on the show at some point. Very exciting. And with Q&A with the directors Ali Catterall and Jane Giles. And that is Scala! Scala! Exclamation mark, exclamation mark, exclamation mark. Or The Incredibly Strange Rise and Fall of the World's Wildest Cinema and How It Influenced a Mixed-Up Generation of Weirdos and Misfits. So this is a documentary about the infamous Scala cinema in London, which was just seems like an incredible place to be, where they showed everything from horror films to sexploitation, and it just sounds like just a mad place where all the misfits from counterculture would come out the woodwork and all just gather at the Scala, and just to be there at that time. So it encompasses the history of the Scala cinema, and it has clips from the weird and wonderful mad films that they showed there, and it's got talking heads from John Waters, Stuart Lee, Adam Buxton, and it has the disembodied voice of Ben Wheatley, which I obviously enjoyed very much. And it's just a thoroughly entertaining film about a very culturally significant place. And as Roger Shannon pointed out in his introduction to the film, the documentary is just as much about the social and cultural history of Britain at that time, because basically the cinema's life just spanned Thatcherism. It's more than just a film about a cinema. And of course, it is incredibly relevant to watch now as we're mourning the loss of the Electric, because the Scala again met a similar fate in that the lease was running out, and then that was that. So I think it's an important film to watch, and who knows, maybe someone's going to make a similar film about the Electric one day. Don't do that, because we want to do that. But
and they won't need to, because it won't close.
Exactly.
You're gonna keep it going.
Thanks for that optimism, Rory. It was great. Nadine, you enjoyed it as well, didn't you?
Yeah, I thought it was brilliant. I loved the style of the doc. I'm not a huge documentary fan, I've got to say, but it was very accessible. It wasn't just a bunch of talking heads. The way they integrated the footage from other films in there, it was fun, it was fast-paced, it was a nice tight 96 minutes. I found it really entertaining. I loved the contributions from all the people that you mentioned, people like Jana Comfra, Mary Harron, Peter Strickland, loads of just brilliant Jar Wobble, like just amazing contributors. And, we were laughing away at like Adam Buxton. he had some brilliant observations, and Stuart Lee. But there were also some quite poignant moments, some quite sad and upsetting moments in the film. And it just sounded like a place like, I wish I could have checked it out. There is a festival, apparently. Thankfully, the building was saved. It's a music venue now. I think they were going to knock it down at some point as part of the Channel Tunnel. I don't know. But that didn't happen. It's no longer a cinema. But
London isn't even under the sea.
I don't know. I don't understand it myself. But, the building was saved, and there's a festival that carries on. And the director did say, Jane, who was the programmer as well, said that, maybe they should have looked at moving to another building and kept it going. But, that wasn't the case. So, again, like you say, a lesson perhaps for those who want to save the Electric.
Absolutely. So, be sure to check out Scala, because it's just a great doc and just fascinating. So, do that. Rory, have you seen any films, or you've been too busy making films?
I know. I saw my own film live.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Was it good?
It's all right.
Was it rubbish?
Yeah, it was all right.
Yeah.
No, it was great. It was great. Yeah. In case any of the 20 crew or any of the viewers here.
I've heard it's amazing, and I've seen screenshots, and it looks fantastic.
That's because I showed you those screenshots, and I said it was amazing.
Yeah.
I watched Past Lives.
Oh.
And I loved Past Lives.
Oh.
Amazing.
Yeah, no, I thought I just thought it was a brilliant film. Yeah, I mean, obviously I think we have talked about it enough,
briefly,
but I'd just say I really loved it. I thought it was a perfect run time as well. Didn't go on too long, and it made me feel very emotional. It's not big enough of a film for me to be a serious contender for the Oscars, but for what it was really heartfelt and lovely. Yeah,
for a debut feature, very confident.
Lovely.
Check it out. It's on Netflix now, I believe.
Yes, it is. Yeah, I really need to get round to watching it, but I don't think I'll ever get round to watching Maestro. I'm not sure that's going to happen.
I think that's okay.
So, there we go. So I believe that's it for the review section this week. we've just got time for Nadine's roundup of local events.
Okay, on the 21st of March, we'll be showing After Hours at the Cuban Embassy. On the 28th of March, A Fantastic Woman will be shown at Yoga Born by Sturchley Cinema. We'll also be showing Peggy Sue at Blowwater. Tickets to that have sold out. But in April, 18th of April, I believe, we will be showing Poor Things.
Woo.
So do grab your tickets for that. I think that might be a sellout, guys. So do get your tickets for that now. Poor Things at the Cuban Embassy. Who knows, maybe there'll be some pastel donatas available if I can get to Lidl.
There's also new chairs.
Yes.
And they're really comfortable.
New and
Oh.
improved chairs. Extra chairs.
That's exciting news.
Yeah.
Not to diss
maybe,
their old chairs.
Maybe Bella Baxter will make an appearance if I can find an outfit that somehow matches the bizarre concoctions on screen. But yes, really excited about that and looking forward to it.
Excellent. Well, that's about all we've got time for this week on the Brum Picture Show. Thank you very much for listening once again. Join us next time where we'll be discussing other things. But in the meantime, it's goodbye from me, Paul.
It's goodbye from me, Nadine.
And goodbye from me, Rory.
Goodbye.
You have been listening to The Brum Picture Show, a Screen B14 production for Brum Radio. Tune in next time for more film fun, and don't forget to email us at pictureshow@brumradio.com. Thanks for listening. Goodbye.
I'm not going to sit here for half an hour.
Can you do the... I'll do the... I'm doing it too high.
You are.
Yeah.
It needs to be.
Oh, it's... There it is.
Yeah, you need a little bit more modulation going on as well.
I'm not a sound guy. Is that modulation?
Yes, that is modulation. It sounds like a frog.
Anyway.
Yes.
Thank you for listening to this Brum Radio podcast. Don't forget to subscribe and rate us on your podcast app.